Noah Beecham was born in Maryland to Thomas and Sarah Adams Beecham. As an adult, Noah was over 6 feet tall, burly, and had a ruddy complexion. Known for his quick temper, he had a disagreement with his father over the morality of slavery in his youth. Being a devout Baptist, Noah was vehemently against slavery, unlike his father, who owned slaves and may have disowned him. As a result, Noah left for Kentucky and then Ohio, where he likely met Elizabeth Adams, who became his wife. Their first child, Noah Beecham Jr., was born in Cincinnati, Ohio on November 29, 1804. By 1811, Beecham had moved his family to Connorsville Township in Fayetteville County in the Indiana Territory, where he set up a blacksmith shop. On December 14, 1812, he purchased a tract of land in Fayette County and lived there until the 1820s, when the family moved to Edgar County, Illinois. Noah was appointed a lieutenant of the 11th Indiana Territorial Regiment on April 29, 1814, which was one of the best organized regiments in Indiana. The Beechams resided in Illinois until the mid-1830s, after which they relocated to Vigo County, Indiana. In Sugar Creek Township, one of Noah Beecham's neighboring families was the Melberry family. George Melberry and Beecham became embroiled in a heated dispute over property boundaries, but the tension between the two families wasn't severe enough to prevent Miss Melberry from hiring Beecham's daughters for knitting work. In July of 1840, after one of these knitting jobs, a larger dispute arose, this time involving the Melberry and Beecham women. The Melberry daughters were spreading rumors around town that Beecham's daughters had stolen some leftover wool from the job. When Beecham heard the accusations, he quickly became very angry and decided to confront George Melberry about the charges. Beecham began walking to George Melberry's house and decided to stop and ask God for guidance. In a clearing where meat had been prepared, he found a large butcher's knife left on a stump. After praying, he decided to take the knife with him in case Melberry's farmhands gave him trouble. When Beecham knocked on the door, only Melberry answered. In the doorway, Beecham angrily berated Melberry about his daughter's behavior. One of the Melberry daughters, overhearing the confrontation from the living room, began talking back to Beecham. Enraged, Beecham threatened her, saying, "If you were a man, I'd cut you into laces," while brandishing the knife. Melberry then put his hand on Beecham's shoulder, and in a reflexive action, Beecham plunged the knife into Melberry's chest, cracking his breastbone with the force of the blade. Melberry died almost instantly. In a panic, Beecham immediately fled the house towards the Wabash River. There, he stole a rowboat and made his escape. When word spread that Beecham had killed George Melberry, a large manhunt ensued, covering all of Vigo County and the surrounding area. However, Beecham was nowhere to be found. The Melberry family grieved their loss, and George Melberry was buried. In the meantime, Beecham had fled to Texas, where he borrowed money to open a blacksmith shop. He accumulated significant debts, and in April of 1841, the son of one of his lenders saw a wanted poster at a local hotel, brought to Texas by a traveler. Since Beecham had not thought to use an assumed name, it wasn't long before the lender's son and another man sought to collect the $500 reward for capturing the fugitive. Beecham was quickly apprehended, and the two men set out for a river to transport him back to Indiana in custody. Before they reached the river, Beecham broke free, overpowered one of his captors, and attempted to escape, but was soon recaptured. He was locked in a cabin on the boat as it traveled upriver. Unknown to his captors, Beecham fashioned a noose from the bedsheets and attempted to hang himself, but his suicide attempt was thwarted when someone came to check on him. In Vigo County, before Beecham's trial began, his lawyer secured a change of venue to Park County due to the case's notoriety. Despite the defense testimony from his daughter-in-law's parents, Stanford and Rhoda Ransdell, Beecham was sentenced to death on September 8, 1842, after a lengthy trial. The gallows were constructed in Rockville, Indiana. On the morning of December 30th, 1842, Beecham's old friend and minister, Reverend Newport, delivered a sermon outside Beecham's jail cell window. Beecham had his last meal, said his goodbyes to family and friends, and was taken to the gallows, where a large contingent from Vigo County awaited. When asked if he had any last words, Beecham simply said goodbye and was hanged. Interestingly, on November 7, 1825, Beecham's cousin, Jeroboam O. Beecham, was also involved in a fatal stabbing with parallels to Noah Beecham's case. Jeroboam fatally stabbed Colonel Solomon P. Sharp in a murder that became known as the Beum-Sharp Tragedy. In an effort to defend his wife's honor, Jeroboam killed Sharp in his own doorway with a knife. Like Noah, Jeroboam fled, triggering a large manhunt. He was captured, attempted suicide, was saved at the last minute, tried, and eventually hanged. I did a video on Jeroboam Beecham. It'll be at the end of this video if you'd like to watch it. Washington Good was born in 1820 in Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, and later lived in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. It is reported that Good fought under General Zachary Taylor, who later became the 12th President of the United States during the Florida War. However, there are discrepancies regarding his birth date and place. While Good claimed to be born in Pennsylvania, his uncle, George Myers, asserted that Good was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and was 28 years old in 1849, which would place his birth year in 1821. Myers also recounted that 15-year-old Washington accompanied him to Boston in 1836. After settling among the city's small black population, Good began working as a servant on ships sailing from Boston. Myers rarely saw his nephew in port, as Good preferred to spend time in Boston's North End, known as the Black Sea. By 1848, Good was a seaman who had served as the second cook on the steamer William J. Pease and as a cook aboard the bark Nantucket. While in Boston, Good was known to be friends with Mary Ann Williams, whom he considered to be his girlfriend, despite her being married. Another black seaman, Thomas Harding, also considered Williams to be his girlfriend. On the night of Wednesday, June 28, 1848, an argument broke out between Harding and Good over a handkerchief Harding had given to Williams. Shortly afterwards, Thomas Harding was found dead from a blow to the head and a knife wound between the ribs. Good was promptly arrested for the murder of his fellow seaman. Good's trial commenced on January 1, 1849. As a capital case, it was tried before the Supreme Judicial Court with Chief Justice Lemuel Shaw, one of the most influential jurists of 19th century America, presiding. District Attorney Samuel D. Parker built his case against Good largely on circumstantial evidence. While no one witnessed Good striking Harding or stabbing him, several trial witnesses testified to seeing someone matching Good's description near the crime scene. Additionally, Good was found with a knife whose blade measured 10 or 11 inches, while Harding's stab wound was 9 inches deep. Good was defended by two young, distinguished attorneys, William Aspinwall, who had never previously defended a capital case, and Edward Fuller Hodges. The defense argued for Good's innocence, challenging the prosecution's witnesses and questioning the validity of the circumstantial evidence presented by Parker. In his closing argument, Hodges attempted to address the inappropriateness of capital punishment in Massachusetts, but Parker objected, and Chief Justice Shaw ruled the discussion out of order. The jury deliberated for only 35 minutes before finding Good guilty of murder. On January 15, 1849, Chief Justice Shaw sentenced him to death, scheduling the hanging for May 25, 1849. In the days leading up to his scheduled hanging, Good consistently professed his innocence to the clergymen who visited his prison cell. On the night before his execution, Good attempted suicide by swallowing large pieces of tobacco and paper and slashing the veins in his arms with a piece of glass. When the prison guards found him, he had already lost a significant amount of blood. However, the prison doctor managed to stop the bleeding, saving his life so he could be executed the following day. Weakened and exhausted, Good was carried to the gallows at 9:30 a.m. on May 25th, strapped to a chair by the prison guards. A large crowd gathered in the rain to witness the event inside the walls of Leverett Street Jail. At 9:45 p.m., still strapped to the chair, Good was placed on the platform over the drop. The sheriff placed a white hood over his head and adjusted the rope around his neck. After reading the warrant signed by the governor, the trapdoor sprang open and Good plunged several feet. 25 minutes later, doctors examined his body and pronounced him dead. His body was then turned over to his uncle, George Myers, who took it back to his house to prepare for the funeral. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, Please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to join our community. We upload every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. For more content like this, be sure to check out our other videos on the channel. You can also follow us on our other social media platforms for uploads and updates. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.